Hi, Steve Gamache here with another Chef Knives to Go. A quick look product review, and what we have this time is the Yusaku Awagami R Blue number 2 Nashiji Funayuki slash Gyuto 210mm knife. And the construction on these knives is 3 layers. What's kind of interesting on this particular line is sometimes the cladding, and this is a soft iron reactive cladding over a reactive core steel, so it's an all reactive blade that will patina over time as you use it. The construction of the knife, the 3 layers show up on the spine. So not all cladding covers over the top of the spine. Often it does. This time, this particular style, it does not. So you can definitely see the 3 layers, which is pretty cool. Remember, the knife is all reactive, so you want to use it, wash it, clean it up, dry it really, really well right away, and then put it away. There's no need to let it sit wet. You don't want to get any rust on it or corrosion. But as long as you do your part, as you start to use it and build a patina on it, that oxidation layer will start to become less and less reactive and a little bit more forgiving. We don't have to just pay hyper attention to it. And once you get a nice patina on there, again, these are really nice to use in the kitchen. The weight and dimensions are going to vary a little bit from knife to knife, but this particular one is 175 grams or 6.2 ounces. The edge length is about 213 from the tip all the way around to the back of the heel, and then the overall length with this handle is about 370 millimeter or about 14.5 inches. Spine thickness, a little bit thicker coming out of the handle. It's fairly typical of this style of knife. I got about 3¼ millimeters coming out of the handle, which is really not that thick compared to some of these style of knives. And then halfway down, I got about 2.4 millimeters. And then we hold that a fair amount. It starts to thin out just a little bit on the spine thickness, what's called a distal taper. And then as you can see, when you hit the grind right here from the blade flats down to the edge, it thins out really nice. And this is a very thin tip. Hopefully you can get a feel for that. That's pretty doggone thin. And the edge grind is thin as well. So this is going to be a high performance blade. What's next here? Blade height. So the blade height is about 49 millimeters at the heel, and that's plenty. You've got a pretty thin neck here in front of the handle. Lots of space for your finger right there, so lots of clearance on the cutting board. The handle is an octagonal ambidextrous oak handle, what they call urushi. You've got a graduated kind of finish to it, and they've done pretty heavy duty job of some epoxy or some kind of sealer there on that spot where the tang enters the handle, so that's really sealed up well. The blade itself, let's take a beauty shot here. So the style of blade this is called the Funayuki slash Gyuto hybrid. And so the Funayuki is known as a boat knife or used a lot to process fish. A lot of times they're a little shorter than this distance-wise. But this one is kind of the hybrid to that, and it has a kind of a spear tip on it as the general style. So fairly pointy tip, easy to get in to do some detail work with that. A lot of people like this kind of a hybrid style. The finish on it is known as Nashiji, which is a mottled kind of pear skin finish on it. And each one's going to be slightly different. This is a pretty smooth finish on these, so it's these are nicely executed. They are well-crafted knives. The blades are straight, the grinds are clean. Again, they've done a nice job on fit and finish. They do have hand engraved or hand chiseled kanji on the right side of the blade as you'd be holding it. It's a nice touch. You don't see as often anymore. And you can see the kind of a sandblasted finish, and then here's your core steel peeking out from the edge there of the cladding. This is the left side of the blade as you'd be holding it. And there's some embossed kanji back on that rear part over there. So really pretty blade. Again, nice and thin on the tip and the spine, so this should be a great performing blade. The grind's pretty generous, so again, the performance should be very nice. Probably a really good balance between food release and performance, given that geometry. What else here? Balance point. So there's our balance point. For me, that's really close, pretty much right on the money for my pinch point, for my pinch grip. So it's very neutral. So for most people, it'll be slightly around there, maybe a little in front, a little behind. So from a pinch point of view, it's a really very neutral balanced knife. which makes it feel a little lighter than it is. So it's 6.2 ounces. It's got a little heft to it, but it also still feels nice and nimble. Out of the box edge on this was a 6 out of 10. It had a pretty nice edge on it. Out of the box, pretty reasonably crafted edge with some polish to it. So let's take a look at what this guy looks like on the cutting board. These have a fairly low tip on them, so let's see, we're digging in the tip about right there on a rock. So this isn't going to be a huge rocker, but you can rock small, kind of medium stuff, not a problem. It's actually a very smooth edge profile. It flows into kind of a stop towards the rear. So this part right here has a bit of a flat area to it. So it flows into that nicely. So you can definitely chop towards the back. You've got a low belly towards the front and middle. So this will work with quite a few techniques, definitely. Glide cuts, push-pull cuts, chopping in the back, tip draws would work well. Medium to low rocking will work really nice. So it's a pretty versatile profile. It's a neat looking blade, isn't it? So these are high value. The great steel. Awagami number 2 sharpens up extremely well, pretty much as good as your skill level allows, and has a good combination of sharpenability plus edge retention. So very nice steel for kitchen knives. So this will give you a lot of many years of service in the kitchen. This is the Yusaku Awagami or blue number 2 Nashiji Funayuki Gyuto 210mm knife.